Thomas, welcome back. How are you going today?
Hi, Dharam. Good to see you again. And I'm perfectly fine here in Germany. Summer struck us. And this weekend we will have 38 degrees Celsius, so quite hot and humid. And in some parts, there was rain today, but not in our world here. It was just hot and humid. So do I enjoy it? Not really. Is life good? Perfect.
Just enjoy whatever it is. You enjoy from inside. Okay, outside hot, inside is cold. So let me stay inside, enjoy the air conditioning for some time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So look, it's exciting to see you again always. With a new topic, and this time we are looking from other side. Normally we talk from the project program manager point of view. Now this time we're looking from sponsors point of view. So project sponsor, their challenges and some suggestions, some solutions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, I've been, involved in training sponsors actually in 1997, and I was the leader for a PMO of an insurance company, and they decided that they have a lot of projects going on, but though the sponsors are acting differently, they don't act from a joint base. So the PMO established some standards for projects, sure, but
yep.
we recognize you also need standards for sponsors. What they
Oh
should
yeah.
do and how they should behave, and so we did a workshop. Actually, somebody from IBM US came over, and it was a 2-day workshop because you get all the executive suite who were the persons who were sponsors for something, and
Hmm.
we had a 2-day workshop. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very important role. Just because somebody is senior manager, somebody is senior executive, doesn't mean that that person can be good sponsor as well.
Yeah.
So, and you rightly said, some standards should be there in organization, and some training. They should go some training programs to know that okay, how should I provide the best value to my project manager and project program
Yeah.
managers?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, buck stop with them. They are the decision makers, and a lot of challenges. It's a challenging role. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask my question here. Can you discuss some of the most common challenges project sponsor face, particularly in aligning the project's goal broader with the organization strategies?
Yeah. Well, I think there are typically a few challenges. First of all, a sponsor has a task to sell the project to the organization, to his colleagues,
Yeah.
to his peers, to the CEO, whatever. Because I saw sponsors, let's say, in the HR department, and they want to do something, and the others don't understand what HR is doing internally. So they have really to be convinced that it's worthwhile and that the organization should spend resources and time and efforts to that. So selling is and negotiating is one of the tasks to do. And then once you are uh, approving a project or a program and it goes on, it's based on some assumptions, on some strategies that are valid at this point in time. But the priorities might change over time. Depending on maybe external disruptions. Supply chains breaking down, or Trump having another good idea, or whatever. So the priorities, the strategies, organization might change, and then you have to adapt, and there is a tendency for a sponsor to protect his or her project, but maybe it's really uh, the time to have a step back and to see to evaluate the justification.
Yep.
Yeah, and then if you don't do that, then a gap will widen between the project strategy and the organizational strategy, and this gap will create conflicts. because we will always be asked in steering committees or just over lunch, what are you doing there? Why are you doing this and that and this, and why do you have this objective and you share it? While we change our objectives in the organization to another part. I've seen that lots of time, because the projects that are big enough to have a sponsor, maybe they take 2, 3, 4 years. Then you cannot expect that the organizational structure governance will stay the same. This will change. And some companies, especially small companies, I've seen that there is just a lack of strategic guidance, and so you are free to do what you want, and then go in. And you know, let me refer to the only standard for sponsorship I know of. Maybe there are more, but the only standard is from an organization that is called GAPPS, and
Okay.
and it's a kind of NGO, and they published a sponsorship standard in 2015. So it's 10 years old, but it's still good. And they had three basic responsibilities of a sponsor, and actually this has to be taught to sponsors, that they understand what their task should be. The first one is a sponsor should take accountability. So
Yeah.
take action, to do something, not by himself, maybe by people who help him for the vision of the project, the justification. Why are we doing that? There has to be a justification signed up by the sponsor. Second, by taking action around, governance. So the reporting system, decision making, exception management, all this stuff has to be somehow organized in governance. And the third thing is, and this is almost often forgotten, is the benefits realization. So if a program or even a project now is delivering benefits, they have to be um, taken over by the organization, by operations, if you want, if it's in the same division. But maybe if you, let's say, install SAP in an organization, and then every division, every organizational part is affected by that. It's logistics, it's materials, it's finance, it's HR, whatever.
Mhm.
So this benefits realization has to be somehow overseen, and it's the accountability of the sponsor to do that. The program manager is responsible for it, really implementing it, and let's say responsibility shifts to more operational organizational parts, and the sponsor has to oversee this process, and there will be conflicts anyhow, so he also has to step in. So this is take accountability of these three things. And then the second, I think, very important part of his responsibility is support the person of the program or project manager. So
Mhm.
this means be available for him.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not enough to see them in a steering committee once a quarter. Not at all. And if you cannot be available because you have so many projects and things going on, and maybe you don't like it, okay, then assign somebody who will take care in your name with that responsibility. At least once a week, there should be a chat, an informal. And once a month, there should be a formal meeting, and it could be in the steering committee or in preparation of the steering committee. uh, just be available, have the time, and reply in time to that. Second, if there are conflicts and the project manager has trust in you, raise his hand. I have a problem here and a conflict with another executive. This is more in conflicts between the project and program manager and people who are more powerful than him, and then they just need your help in that kind of conflict, because you have the power to discuss with your peers and with other division leads. And the third thing, give feedback. You have
Mm.
to you have to really um, train them and educate them what they're doing well, where they should improve. And if you have built trust, if you are available, if you have some informal talks, and they will listen to you, will improve, and so you will build a great follower that can assist you in further tasks you will go on in your career. And the third thing, besides, take accountability for the three things and support the project manager, is support the project in certain points. Make sure that the resource availability is sustained. In the beginning, okay, you will maybe hire people, bring a team, but in longer engagements, you will have to refill the team. There will be the attrition, or you need other kind of persons, and this is the task of the program manager for sure, or project manager. But somehow in a organization, the it has to be the priority for your project. You want it to have, so you should support here. Then cultivate stakeholder commitment. B, ensure readiness for reviews, audits, whatever coming on, and yeah, and maybe the most important in that project support part is ensure timely decisions.
Yeah.
Don't drag decisions, and in the end, you are making the decisions maybe together with your steering committee. According to the governance model, this project is run under. And I really like this GAPS standard. And as you did, you know that?
No, I didn't know. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah. So I think it's a short paper only, but it's very insightful what a sponsor should
Yeah.
do. And what I have seen sponsors doing, which don't know about that, is really a disaster. When they are attacking the project manager in steering committees, when they are asking scrutinizing details, trying to find the gaps in the presentations. No, no, no. A sponsor should help the project manager that his presentations before the other group, of steering committee members is quite concise and successful.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the sponsor is like a big brother, you know. Yes, your younger brother, which is project program manager, are doing, trying, getting, helping you to achieve your objectives because, and, you are the one given responsibility. You're accountable for that. And your project program managers, they are one running around getting things done for you. So yes, you support them, you provide them right direction, making sure they are in the right direction, and
Yeah.
organizational support, and making sure they have right guidance, they have required funding, required resources, decisions are made, in right timely manner. Otherwise, project manager, they don't know, they think they're doing okay, and when things are not going right, then sponsors start shouting at them, hey, things, you're not doing good. What you were doing when I was not doing good. That's where you should have been looking at me, give me direction. Of course, they are busy people, your senior managers, but that's the role of a sponsor, to act as a big brother, to support the project
Yeah.
managers when it's needed.
Yeah. And I've seen sponsors, executive sponsors, at IBM, and they maybe really had only time once a quarter, but they helped, in these events that we came together. They really were of help, because they got the unsolvable problems, and they came back with ideas how to solve them. Very good. Let me give some wider views on the sponsor. So we are talking project manager sponsor, a one-to-one relationship in many projects, mega projects, in many programs, where multiple organizations are involved, like consortia or private public partnerships, or even in just client supplier relationships. You might have not one but multiple sponsors, people who are supporting you from these organizations. And then, you have to ensure that these sponsors team up, and that they form a kind of uh, yeah team to help you to understand, um, and to fulfill. Sponsors are all not only for projects and programs, but also, for example, for PMOs. If you build a PMO, if you create that, you have a PMO sponsor, at least at the beginning. The problem is with those PMO sponsors, as I saw it a lot of times, is that they might leave the PMO idea. They have initiated it and it's running after a year and they are happy with that, they go elsewhere. Or even other sponsors, in projects, longer projects, they might leave the project. And then what are you doing? You should prepare for that risk, for that event, and which means that there should be maybe a secondary sponsor for helping you. And I found that in a project, as an example, that we had a sponsor and he was also the funder of the project, and he had 1.5 million. That was all for the project. But then, it came up that we need 2 million. So what to do? So we found a second funder and he became the second sponsor. So in case the first sponsor would, let's say, leave the company or whatever, we could have switched to the second sponsor, um, who was now interested to make his 500,000 worthwhile, and the other 1.5 million was also there. And another aspect, we have some ideas in mind how we look at time. And normally in our Western world in projects, we look at time as a chronos. So time is, well, 1 hour after the other, 1 day after the other, 1 week after the other. So time is somehow continuous and linear. And it's built,
Yeah.
all our schedules are built on that. And it's called chronos, this view on time. It's a perspective on time. And another perspective on time is called kairos. So these are Greek words, and kairos means it's an event-driven time. So actually, this event-driven time view is very natural because it's how our brain works. Our brain doesn't work, hour per hour. If you sleep, you miss maybe 6 or 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
But your brain doesn't notice it. But your brain notices if you wake up, if something interrupts you. So the event-driven time is much more natural and human, and it's called kairos. And sponsors live in kairos because they are called upon if there is a unexpected event, and they may be also called in chronos views when you have a regular monthly steering committee, fine. But normally they are of most help if you have events that are not planned, not anticipated. And this is also for me one of the big differences between project and program management, that
Mm.
project managers, they look at the schedule and milestones and checkpoints.
Yeah.
That's chronos. But program managers always look at kairos, because there's an event, an opportunity, a risk, whatever, and you have to adapt to it, and that's a mindset that is important. I'm not saying it's either or. There is this term, what is called temporal uh, ambidextery. You have different views depending on the situation which is required, but you have to know both as well, and how to handle and how to behave in both situations.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Lots of challenges, and the ways to deal with that. Okay. So, what strategies can project sponsor use to navigate organizational politics and ensure their projects receive the necessary support and resources?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to have a strategic network
Mm.
within the organization, and this doesn't start with the project. It has to be, let's say, existing. Hopefully, if you are a sponsored organization, you start a project, you already have, your friends, your enemies, the good guys, and you have to build and maintain this strategic relationship network. There's a very good book by Tom Peters, 50 Ways to Run a Project or so, and 25 of these 50 ways actually are recommendations before the project starts, and it's all about building your network to support the project. Even you have to prepare it. So logically, now this is called the pre-project or front loading. But these are the tasks you do there, maybe planning and so on. Here, it is about relationship management, stakeholder engagement. You also, a second point is a strategy you have to build, and we hear it so often now, in politics, but also in organizational politics, manage the narrative about the project, build a story why the project is important and is necessary for the organization, for everybody. Maintain that narrative, So nobody is interested in big detailed project reports about risks and budgets and whatever, but you have to tell the story why it's of benefit to the organization and why it has been decided and how it's progressing and starting to deliver benefits. You have to do that. You cannot really hide everything and then expect there isn't a narrative about your project, because it will be. Um, what's also important as a strategy, make sure you understand your funding and your budgets. And make sure you are knowledgeable about what has been spent and how maybe the budget is evolving during a program, and make sure that you have multiple funding sources. So I was so amazed by learning how the Olympic Games are run. Do they have a budget estimate, but do they have a budget at the beginning? No. They have multiple sources for funding. It's IOC that will give some seed money, but these are the expected sales of the tickets, and a lot of sources. They have volunteers. So Olympic Games typically employ 20, 30,000 volunteers, which is a lot of funding if you convert it to money. And so make sure you have multiple sources where you can get your resources and your money from. Yeah, I told you about managing the narrative. That's important, but this also includes that you yourself as a sponsor should be visible as the leader of the whole initiative. And it doesn't mean that you should be bragging around, and you should also acknowledge that the program manager needs also visibility, but you have to make sure, why? Because this project cannot survive in a hidden undercover area. You have to really bring it out. And what does it mean? You could run a newsletter every quarter about the project. You could establish some short executive sheets where you tell your colleagues what's going on and how the benefits are evolving. I saw that in one of my last clients. It was the HR guy, and actually he developed a one pager which he shared every month with his colleagues about the benefits achieved from that project.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was owning the narrative. He was visible, and they said, "What is he doing there? How is he doing that?" Because they didn't know. You have to establish some measurements, some targets, and go along that to have this one sheet. So that's for sure. Measure the benefits and report them regularly. And also, what's also important here as a strategy is make sure that you design the people at the organization of the steering committee.
Yep. Yep.
Because if you have somebody who is opposing your project and he is in the somewhere, and my tip is really to bring that guy into the steering committee, so though that his concerns are heard and his opposing character is a little bit smoothed by his peers, because he cannot fight the project in a steering committee really, where the most people are there to support the project.
Yeah, that's interesting to know that bring your enemy into the steering committee. I mean, enemy in the sense
Yeah,
somebody is opposing. Okay, let's have him here and let him on. It can be chaos if this person is dominating. Then he or she has a bigger voice now, and everybody has to listen. I mean,
well, yeah, you have to manage that for sure. There is a risk if you don't manage it that it can go in the opposite direction. But normally, if you have a steering committee, maybe 8 people on the steering committee, and all of them positive, and then you bring in the enemy as a ninth, he normally has no chance.
yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, look, just like we do project program, knowing about your stakeholders at the sponsor level, you again similar thing. You need to
Yeah,
know your stakeholders, internal stakeholder, external stakeholder, the senior managers, director, your
yeah,
project manager, program manager, PMO, and knowing about what they need from you, what information they need, when they need, and how you're going to provide that information at the right time. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and especially when there's a politics going on and who has what agenda, why they're doing this. Is it because they don't like you? Is it because they have their own personal agenda going on? What can you do to minimize that impact on the program or project? So a lot of things has to happen at the sponsor level.
correct. And consider, as a program manager, you are the sponsor of your project.
Yeah,
So you also have to understand what a sponsor should do and should not do.
exactly. Providing right funding, right direction, right decisions, supporting your project managers, creating the environment. The most important thing, creating a right environment where
Yep.
project manager can do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. That's what I'm always saying. A project manager looks at the internals of the project, has to build the team, has to contain the scope, has to meet the constraints, everything, and has to protect somehow the boundaries of the project. While a program manager has to look at the outside, at the context, because in
Yeah,
the context, there are the events coming up, the disruptions, there is the funding, there is the narrative which is going down uncontrolled. So while a project manager is trying to control, and trying to stick to the basics, a program manager is really trying to build the narrative and opportunities. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, important role. Okay. How can project sponsor balance the need for detailed oversight and empowering the project teams to make autonomous decisions? Can you share any strategies or framework that will work in to balance the program project?
Yeah, it's somehow delegation, and
Yeah,
not all managers are good at delegation, and you
yeah,
have to learn it, and you have to understand what it is, and there are guides how to delegate well. I would recommend to be aware of these guides and to learn about them. And internally, you have to promote psychological safety and trust, because
yeah,
not only with your project managers or program managers, but also with the steering committee and your partners in alliances to support the project. Which means, and I've always done that out of my heart, oppose any blame culture. You know, so if there's a mistake and somebody says, "Oh, he did it," I said, "This is the wrong question, or the wrong response to that." We are talking about the fact there's a mistake and what we do around it, but not to blame anybody. So, and also embrace mistakes. The
yeah,
famous story of one of the Lee Cocker, I think he was it, and somebody made a mistake which cost several $1 million, and then he came to the CEO and asked to be fired. He said, "I won't fire you. I just invested in your training." You know, uh, a lot of money, and you give it back, because we only learn, we innovate from mistakes. And
yeah,
you can see that with Elon Musk. He said, okay, all these rockets flying up and exploding, whatever, this is not nice, but it's necessary to learn.
Yeah.
So, and in order to do that, you have to be not to kill somebody because he made a mistake. You have to embrace it. You have to make sure that you feel safe, not to make the next mistake, but not to make this mistake again. So then, what I also would say, balancing the need is what you have to learn is adaptive intelligence. So, we have this emotional intelligence, we have this rational intelligence, and we have a third thing coming up uh,
Yeah.
and defined by a guy called Sternberg, adaptive intelligence. It's about learn from experience, adjust to change, and solve complex problems. And that's what we need. And,
Yep.
and I came to think about this adaptive intelligence listening to a webinar, no webinar. He was face to face, a CEO of a startup, and he was asked, at what criteria are you looking when you're hiring people to your startup?
Yeah.
And he said the most important thing is adaptive intelligence. So, how would they behave when disruptions come in? How can they adjust to change? Are they emotionally stable, and are they able to tackle this as a problem and to solve it? And so he said also, in order to find out if the people how big that adaptive and intelligence is in people, they hire them for 3 or 4 months, and then they meet everybody on the team, and then you don't even have to discuss it because you understand it after 3 months if this person is good or not in adaptive intelligence.
Yeah.
If you hire people for skills, that's really dumb because you can build skills, and you need skills very typically to your tasks, to your organization, to your project, and they have to learn it anyhow. They have to go to a workshop and maybe have a webinar and three-day whatever, and you can have the skills. A little bit more difficult is to hire for experience. Maybe you want to have somebody who did that before.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But if somebody who is coming in an innovative environment, which is doing things nobody has done before, this doesn't even help experience. So it really only helps that these people are open, innovative, and have this adaptive intelligence.
Yeah, I like this word, adaptive intelligence. We do talk about lesson learns, and what are you learning from them? And
Yeah.
yes, it did not work out this time. Next time we do differently and learn from what your past mistakes. And you rightly said, sometimes is look for the experience. Somebody who failed, and what they did once they realized they failed, and what they did for in the next time, the success from the failed project. That can be good learning, good asset to have person like that. Yes, we all fail, but sometimes we don't acknowledge that we failed, and what did you do to recover from that failed project and come out victorious?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good. And we talked about this guy who made a mistake because that $1 million loss, and but he still trusted him. Okay, don't worry, we are in together, and next time you realize that made this guy made $10 million benefit to the organization because you can learn from that. So yeah, give them opportunities. Of course, they allow them to fail, but that's where sometimes we allow them to fail, let them fail, and then realize from mistakes, and talk about, okay, what happened, what do you learn from this, what do you do next time?
Yeah.
Just like when you're nurturing our kids, when the kids are growing up from the very early days, we either give them the cotton wool every side, and they don't let them fall down. And if they don't fall down, they will not know the pain of falling down. They don't know how to, when the real situation comes, they will not know how to handle that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a little bit more difficult if you get older because you start falling down again.
that we need contributors around you.
And the learning is you might have a cradle or whatever, to be there, but you are more cautious, yeah. So,
Yeah,
but it's true, I think several thousand times a toddler falls until he can walk. And that's the normal kind of way how we learn and how we improve and how we get great.
yeah. And other thing is when probably you've seen, or when somebody comes from rich family with all everything is around them, you don't see them succeeding in their life, as a mature person. But the person is coming from humble background, they did not have too much to, and
Yeah,
they need to grow themselves by learning. And such people again can be a good good person to lead their projects because they know how to lead the project from the very beginning as a humble
yeah,
background.
yeah. So yeah, a good example is A Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash. The story.
Mm,
Where the boy was named Sue, so he experienced a lot of hostility at school, at university, wherever. But that was to make him more resilient. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. More resilient. Yeah. Okay, so moving to the next question. What are the key considerations for project sponsor when dealing with high turnover rates within your project teams? And how
Well,
can they, sorry, let
yeah,
me continue. Yeah. How can they ensure continuity and maintain project momentum during such transitions?
yeah, yeah. Well, high turnover rates is always a sign for some problems, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think you have to get down to the root causes of these problems, and root causes may lie in the culture, in the payments, in the environmental things. So if you have office buildings without air condition in in Germany right now, maybe you have a problem and people will leave. But even culture, and if you have a culture where people are being bullied, there's also a
Oh, yeah.
thing. Um, so you have to analyze the root causes and to have to fight them. And if you identify, let's say, bullying, there are steps you can take as a organizational leader to avoid, not avoid, to mitigate that problem. And to establish some ombudsmen, so to establish examples to get rid of bullies instead of the people who are being bullied, and this kind of thing. A very drastic thing I recommend, if I'm in charge of a project or program, and I see, okay, there's a high attrition or a problem of the culture of the organization, I try to isolate that team from the organization. I try to build their own culture, and their own identity. And I could do that I do that by naming the project right, having a mascot, having some project specific things that are not usual in the organization, and then you can establish a kind of elite, thinking. They might not be an elite, but they think they are. They are special, and this is what you do in that isolating. If you are an organization that works well, that has a good culture, you don't need to do that. Instead, you would open up and see others how you're doing and learn from the organization. But if you can't do that, yeah, and then and there are ways to do that, encourage team resilience and team autonomy. Make sure that you build resilience, and there are some steps how to do that. And even beyond resilience, you can look at anti-fragility. So the term coined by the book of Taleb, anti-fragility, is that you even leverage disruptions to your benefit, and build great things out of it. You understand if there is a disruption, everybody is complaining and suffering, and has negative impacts. Then you do something that you are benefiting from it. And there are a lot of examples where it happens. Uber is one of them, or these companies who are profiting from from the Corona times, like Zoom. Zoom was an anti-fragility example. When you use these times. So I think it's also important that you communicate well, that you show leadership, that
Yeah,
you expose yourself, you show that you are there, and your behavior will be watched. And so if your behavior is helpful, is supportive, if people like you and maybe mimic you even, then you see that maybe people will take this as a reason not to leave, but to
yeah,
stay. So leadership is creating followers, and if you're a good leader, you're creating your followers, and your followers won't leave you. Well, they might leave the team, they might leave the company, but not you. That's the
exactly.
way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important topic, especially if you have a team which is leaving. That means, yes, you might rightly said there are some problems. So, what is going on? So, doing some root cause analysis, fishbone diagram, whatever you want, figure out what is going on. Is it because others are paying more salary, they have better job opportunities, or you have a some, as you mentioned, bullying or some difficult environment to survive for people? So identifying them and using some Pareto 80-20 tools. Okay, what can we do to improve the motivation, engagement, and connectivity? And you may find out it may be simply no, they were not recognized for their work. They are doing excellent job, but nobody is recognizing them. It may be as simple as calling their name. Hi guys, you're doing great job, and appreciating them in public. And if they are doing good job, yes, recommending the bonuses. So small things can have a big impact. And if they're
Yeah,
doing good job, organize, like, get them into training programs, certification programs, let them grow. If they grow, they feel a part of the team, part of the company. They stay there for many many years. If you look after them, they look after you. I mean,
right, right,
okay.
right. And it's not only if you are a leader of a sponsor, you have the program manager, you have maybe project managers, then you must make sure that your leadership team is
Yeah.
doing similar than you, and then because you can't do everything alone from
Oh yeah.
scratch, and it's
Yeah.
it's, it's something. These are actions that are not planned for because they are a reaction to a situation you don't like, like attrition. So this is what you do.
Yeah, in the latest edition of Standard for Program Management, PMI has introduced a new domain called collaboration. So collaboration is all about building synergy, team of teams, making sure everybody is aligned, and creating environment where the team can perform their role. As a program manager, yes, you play a role, but the sponsor has to play a role. Make sure that the team is collaborating. They are
Mhm.
consulting available. The culture is there to support each other instead of silos. Removing the silos. Some small things can have a big impact. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Now, can you share a real world example where effective project sponsorship made a significant difference in project success? And what key actions did sponsor take at the time?
Well, yeah, there are many, many examples that come to my mind.
Yeah.
I was intrigued by a book about the Vancouver Olympic Games and the leader, the program leader of these Olympic Games.
Mhm.
He was a little bit contentious because there were later on some corruption charges. But how he tells how he was selected, because he was selected not because he was a sports guy, or he knew a lot about how to organize these big events. He was elected because he was a Canadian. By heart, and
Oh,
and
yeah. Okay, that's very important.
and he knew the Canadian culture, and the steering committee that elected him, was very aware that this is one of the most important aspects of sponsorship, that you are authentic, you stand there, and people look you in the eye, and they know what you feel and mean, and what you want to do. you can convey a vision and a dream, and that was his role. And then there was some hiccups with taking actions, but in the end, the Olympic Games were very successful, even if there were some death involved, which had to be handled. But I like that sponsorship role he played. Or I saw, personally rolling out SAP to Eastern Europe, and it was 5 countries in Eastern Europe, and it was managed out of Vienna. And we had a sponsor who was in the executive team of the client on European level. And we had managing directors of every country, 5 countries, and every country had to, in the end, agree to decisions made jointly, because SAP rolled out for 5 countries in parallel. You have to have some joint requirements and everything. And I understood how we had a decisive steering committee, and I was part of that. And it was actually a Zoom meeting or whatever we used at this time. And so from every country, the people were on the screen. But this sponsor was with the Polish MD in his office, because he understood that the Polish MD was the one that was most opposed to the decision making. So he went to him to Poland, sat beside him, and they ran this steering committee from Poland. So this is the kind of behavior. Be engaged, know what you want, and take responsibility for these decisions and actions. And that's what he did. It was amazing. It's not that he had to do much every day, but this was a decisive step, to make this decision, including the Polish guy. And the Polish can be a little bit stubborn. No pun intended. But the cultures are different, and I could tell other things like outsourcing deals I've observed or run even, uh, one sponsor, I think I told we had a larger in outsourcing, a larger data center breach, and the servers were down for a day or two, and it came up. And it was not expected from an IBM data center, and so somebody from the US executive team of IBM, Armonk headquarters, he flew in. He came to the team, and in the evening we sat together. There was an outsourcing guy, project guy, myself as a program manager, and then he just sat there and asked us some questions and listened, And the next morning he went to the client. He apologized. He explained the situation from the meeting before, and he promised what would happen, and the situation was with the client, the executive situation was clarified. So these are examples of how sponsors come in, and can solve big conflicts and problems you have. I also saw opposed things, also somebody coming from the US, not reading the briefing, not asking questions, and then sitting with the client and talking bullshit. I've seen this also. And then but clients are very much knowledgeable about what's happening, and they forget about it, and they don't blame us for this misbehavior and bullshit. But they were a little bit, maybe they were even saying, okay, you poor guys, with such a management, I will not really push you too hard.
Yeah, I mean, of course, thank you for sharing some of the examples. These are great examples in Vancouver, because you need to really believe in it. As a sponsor, you're the leader of the program or this big initiative. People, your project managers, everybody looking towards you.
Yeah,
and you need to believe in the vision, and you need to take them from where they are to the real achieving the vision. So if you don't
Yeah.
believe in vision, nobody will believe in you because you don't know what you're doing. So the leader, you have to be really showing the leadership qualities, and that's what many of the sponsors have done it. That's where we see some of the wonderful projects, successful projects as well. We talk many times failure, 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 but there are a number of successful projects, and they happen because not just because miraculously a miracle happened, but because they were really committed and they took the team from point zero to achieve the success. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, so anybody can be a successful sponsor if they follow and learn something from the past, as you talked about, adaptive intelligence, and thrive in that. Yeah. So my next question is, what future trends do you foresee in project sponsorship, particularly with the advent of new technologies like AI, data analytics? How can sponsor leverage these tools to enhance project outcomes?
Well, I'm not too excited about these future trends with data and AI and all that. Yes, we will have data-driven decision making becoming a standard. We will have risk management enhanced by AI. We will have stakeholder engagement enhanced by AI. Maybe even that we understand the emotions and emotional EI that's there. That you can look at that, but it's also maybe has to be balanced with some ethical concerns. How can you really let an AI analyze your counterpart? So what I think, future trends and foreseeing and all this is what we plan, but what we cannot plan, is how people respond to disruptions, to unplanned events. Yeah?
Yeah.
And this is the main task. I said the sponsor is living in Kairos, you know, in this event-driven time, and all the future events are uh, Chronos-driven. We develop the AI and everything, and I think the sponsorship role would not change so much in the future because it is the connection between the organization and the task, the project or the program, and this connection is needed also in future. It will not be replaced by AI. And all these AI things, will certainly make things faster, quicker, more data driven, and all of that. But what about the events that are coming up, but you didn't see them, or
Mhm.
so there is a thing, when we talk about risk management is always about events we can imagine. We say, okay, this might happen, and then we have a probability to it and a damage and whatever. But what is the case in programs and for sponsors is not risks. So the known unknowns, risks, we know them, but the unknown unknowns, the uncertainty aspects of the world and of our programs and projects is what is makes sponsorship necessary in the future.
Yeah. And these technology or data you had talked about, AI intelligence, artificial intelligence, all definitely could help you because you can analyze the data much faster, you can get better intelligence, and you can run your projects program more effectively by understanding. But same time, there are situations where AI and data may not work. Still need your human intelligence. You need to still build a relationship with your executives, buy-in, support, work with your project managers, work with the stakeholders. These things, even if you have the highest level of AI, you still need to have some human intelligence required.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm 100% aligned with your thinking. Yes, we can use some of these to build our some decisions, some fast thinking. Yes, obviously it can get you, okay, analyze the data, give me some information, okay, this is what happened, you get that. But still utilizing your human intelligence and the behavior of reading the behavior. and all those things will still you need to be in control about that.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you. It was a good discussion. Anything else you like to add to this discussion?
Well, if you happen to be a program manager, I think, be aware you are a sponsor and then try to reflect on what we talked about and what the standards are and what the role is. And then you will be better equipped to make your program as a
Yeah,
sponsor more successful.
yeah. Look, it's a very important role. In any project program, sponsor plays the highest, authority, and they should also, and as they said, with power, you need to come. You have responsibility as well. So you need to know about your responsibility, your actions, how you're going to empower your team, how you're going to work with them to make the best decision and make the project successful. So a lot
Yep.
lies on you as the sponsor, no doubt. Okay, so Thomas, thank you once again for your time and your contribution. As usual, you are great, and your reference to material, books, the thoughts, what people are saying is based on your learning of these things from various people, and you bring this all this here is awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dharam, for organizing these and looking forward to wrap it all up.
Great. Thank you very much, and I will see you again in near future. See you soon. Bye.
Bye bye.